Okay. So welcome one and all. No, I'm just recording it because it's sometimes people, it's a stander, doubling his computer stand, does everything. It's very, very versatile. They market it as dual purpose. So welcome one and all. In certain ways, you say, wait, this is a continuation of what we did the last go around. It is, but it's a standalone story, which obviously is connected in terms of the tissue that connects it to what came before and also what comes after. This series is called National Injustice, and notwithstanding the flyer and the picture and the flyer, it's not actually about the United Nations per se. It's about internal issues having to do with morality and the power of kings and of in politics, the ways in which, how do they say, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So that's something that we'll explore in the next 3 weeks. And it's part of our history, and we learn lessons not only from the greatness of our ancestors and our antecedents, our forebears, but also sometimes from the opposite side of the other side of the ledger, things they did wrong, mistakes, errors, foibles, failures, and sometimes stooping to depravity and grave injustice. And one of the main messages, of course, of the Tanakh is not to sugarcoat it and put everybody in a halo, and just make it a biography of one great person after the other, but also to have portraits of villainy and of people who do things that are simply wrong. For those who were not at the last session or in previous sessions with me, a few things to point out. Number one, this is not political commentary on whatever's happening in the world today. In the real sense of the term, you could draw your own lessons and messages. I'm not a political scientist. I'm not a historian. I learned Tanakh. I'm a Talmud of the Tanakh, and hopefully the Tanakh, the Shas, Poskim, etc. So that's what I'm trying to bring to bear and to derive certain spiritual messages, some of which are harder to parse than others based on the challenging content that you're learning. Number one. Number two, a little background on what's going on for those who weren't here before. So I'll repeat again. For most of the first Jewish Commonwealth, there were two Jewish states, two Jewish kingdoms. It was the one everyone went to and the one nobody wanted to go to, like the two shuls. Same thing. There was a breakaway. The breakaway took most of the people, 10 tribes. That breakaway happened in the wake of the death of Shlomo HaMelech. In the time of his life, during his lifetime, it was already foretold to him, essentially, that he would be punished for certain sins that he had, but not in his lifetime, but in his son's lifetime. And who is that? His son, Rechavam, takes over. There is essentially rebellion over taxation. And essentially, there's more to it than that. And 10 tribes secede and make their own kingdom, which they handily refer to as Malchut Yisrael. So from the Bnei Yisrael, you had Malchut Yisrael, which of course lent them a real sense of legitimacy, leaving the smaller area, Malchut Yehuda, for the tribe of Yehuda and Binyamin, and of course the tribe of Levi is everywhere. They live all over the country. They don't have land per se. So that's just the backdrop, and all the stories from Melachim Alef. What? Yeah, also that's true. That's true. In Melachim Alef, from chapter 11, pretty much on down. It's an easy way to remember it. There are two tribes, two kingdoms. Kingdom of Yehuda, Kingdom of Israel. And the story keeps oscillating between stories of the one or the other. This story, as the last series, this series also connected to Malchut Yisrael, which involves, at this moment, a particular king named Achav and his wife Izebel. And this is certainly the chapter that illustrates the villainy of the one, maybe both of them. We'll see. That'll be part of the discussion. And a story that transpired, I would say, in between wars, at least the way it's situated here in Sefer Melachim Alef. So I'm on page 436, but before we even learn anything, we need to see the geography. So this is the map over here, first page. If you just look on the map, you can find a couple of important things. On the bottom of the map here, there's a blue tab. If you can see it, it says in English, even though it's in a Hebrew map, the word Shomron. So that was the kingdom of Israel's capital city. That's where it was. And if you want to orient where it is latitudinally, you just look to the coast, and there is Netanya with my various family members smiling back at us from Netanya. So that's down over there. Farther north, and of course that broken line is what some call the Green Line, defining the territory before, after 67, something like that, 1967, right? A little farther north of the Green Line is Yisrael. And I wanted to show this to you because Yisrael is a region. What? Near Route 7, right, near Route 71. Sorry, yeah, near Route 71. If you follow the road, in fact, I'm glad you pointed out, the roads, right? If you don't know this already, it mostly works out that roads in Israel that are north-south, modern Israel, are even, and east-west are odd. It's not always true, but it oftentimes plays out that way. Not always, but oftentimes the odd is okay. There are exceptions anyway, because of course, like you have Lahavdil in Chicago, you have the 94 east and west, but in our neighborhood, east and west is really north and south. You get on same thing. Okay, so anyway, back to this. Why am I telling you highways? Give me a tangent. The highways, the roads are often built to dovetail with topography. And Yisrael is a region also known as Emek Yisrael. It's a valley. It's lush, it's fertile, as opposed to the area of Shomron, Samaria, which is hilly. Now, why do we care about this? It's going to be germane to the story. Germane to the story to try to understand why the king of Israel cares so much about this area. All right. And it's not far, Yisrael, at least the biblical land that we're focused on, from Afula. Okay, Afula, Beit Shan, it's a valley. Emek Yisrael. People want to go there. They want to be part of the Jezreel Valley. Yeah. Okay. Now, so that's introduction. Now we'll learn the story, and I maintain this not rabbinic. It's just like, as I happen to. I have a certain fondness, let's say, for all things literary, although I've been away from it of late. I maintain that the Bard, certainly Shakespeare, the Bard, certainly was an expert in Bible, and he wrote a lot of his stories based on the Bible, and you'll figure out pretty quickly which one this is. Which one he took from here, and he fashioned into one of his most famous tragedies. Kerem Hayal and Avot. I'm on page 436 at the bottom of the page. 436 in the Quran Tanakh. 436. Vayachar Dvarim Ha'ela Kerem Hayal and Avot Ha'Israeli Asher BiYisrael Eitzel Heichal Achav Melech Shomron. In one pasuk, we're learning about the geography. We're also learning there's some kind of continuity. Whatever's happening now, it's what happened before. There's always a continuity. Even when you open Breshit Bar Elokim Shemaim V'Haaretz, it is somewhat of a continuity to things that have happened previously as well. We'll come to that later. But after those matters of the last series, so there was a vineyard that Navot, who was a Yisraeli, had in Yisrael. Now, just in those words, it's kind of redundant, right? Yeah. Except if we're already getting a flavor that Navot defines his identity as a man who is from Yisrael. In other words, it's not just that he has a plot of land somewhere, he bought an apartment. It's him. And he lives in this place. And by the by, there's a palace that Achav has in Shomron, which is curious because I just finished telling you that the Shomron, the place where the king has his palace, is really much farther south. And we'll see inside, some of the commentators say, well, he had like a summer-winter residence. You ever heard of this, where people live in two different places? No. Summer here and winter there. Sound familiar? So he had a summer home. Where is the summer home? It's really the winter home. Where is it? It's in the Jezreel Valley. Why? Because when you're not in the valley, when you're not in the mountains, I mean, the weather's better, presumably in the even a little farther north. Yeah, but you're going to get more snow in the north or whatever. So he has this place here. Vayidaber Achav el Navot lemor tana li et karmecha vihili legan yarak ki hu karov etzel beiti v'etna lecha tachtav kerem tov mimenu im tov beinecha etna lecha pasif mechir zeh. What is Achav, the king of Malchut Yisrael, asking Navot? I want what you have. Give me your vineyard. I'm going to make it into a little garden. Why? Because it's adjacent to my home. So I want to expand. And I'm not taking it from you. I'll give you in exchange a vineyard that's better. in terms of the quality. Or if you prefer, I'll just give you the cash value. You can cash out. This happens all the time, right? Hasn't happened to me, to us in Sleeping Bear Road, but it could happen, right? Can I buy your house? I'll give you, $2 million. $2 million. Sure. Do you pay cash? Yeah, right here. Wonderful. But that's not.
You wind up having to buy a condo on Church Street.
Right. They have to buy a condo. Exactly. It could happen in Skokie. It has happened. Let's just go. Halavai. Oh, those who are making Aliyah are waiting. You're waiting. You never know. But that's what he told him, right? There's a subtlety in this pasuk. If you look carefully, look at Perek Chaf Aleph pasuk Alef, the verse we started with, and look at the second verse. Look how Achav is called, how he's referred to in each of these. You see? The king of Shomron. So there's a palace of Achav, the king of Shomron. It's highlighting he's the king of Shomron. He's not the king in Israel. It's it's farther north. You could say, well, it's under his jurisdiction somehow. It could be, but there's an amplification of that. But now look at pasuk Bet. Who speaks to Navot? Achav. Who's Achav? A person, not the king, not in his royal, right? He just tells him, look, I have a house and I'd like to buy yours so I can have a double lot. Response, next page 437. V'yomer Navot el Achav chalila li me Hashem mititi et nachalat avotai lach. God forbid. Chas v'chalila. It's right there. Chalila. Chalila me Hashem. Involves God. Invokes God. That I should give the heritage of my parents to you. No way. I'm not going to do that. No, I refuse. Not for money and not for land. V'yavo Achav el beito sar v'za'ef al hadavar asher diber elav navot ha'Yisraeli v'yomer lo etein lecha et nachalat avotai. So he comes home. He's very angry, right? Person mercurial, based on what we saw in a previous series about him. The way Navot spoke to him, and he calls him Navot Yisraeli, that he heard him say, I will not give you the heritage of my forefathers. Vayishkavel mitato, he went down to lay down on his bed. And Dot Mikrad points out it could be his couch, like at the table. They didn't sit at chairs and tables and chairs. They had a couch. Vayasevet panav lo achal lachem. That's why I think it may be in the dining room. He turned his face away. He did not want to eat any bread. He's very angry. He can't even eat. He's sick to his stomach. He can't even eat. Yeah? Okay. Vatavo elav Izevel, Ishto. Vatadaber elav. Mazerucha chasarav incha uchel lachem. What's going on? What is wrong with you that you seem so angry? You're radiating rage and you're not even eating bread. Vatadaber elav. Ki adaber. He tells her the story. Ki adaber el navot Israeli va'umar lo. Tana li et karmecha v'chasef im chafetzata etna lecha cherem tachtav vayomer lo atein lecha et karmi. He said when he tells her the story. This is what I told him, and what does he respond? No, I won't give you my vineyard. And now we see the real villain, the villainy of Jezebel in our midst. Yeah, Tomer ilav Izebel ishto ata. You, she tells him. Izebel, his wife, says to him, you, ata be'ain. Now you, yeah? You now. Ta'aset meluchal Yisrael. You be the king, please. Kum echol lechem. V'yitav libecha. You should be glad in your heart. Everything's fine. Ani atein lecha et kerem navot Israeli. Don't you worry, she says to him. I'm going to fix this. I have a plan. Don't worry. I'll make it right, right? But get up out of your bed and stop being so angry. Stop pouting. I'll fix it. How does she fix it? She wrote letters in her husband's name. She had access to his signature, his email account. She could send whatever she wanted. Sounds like another story where someone villainous got someone else's stemple, to send whatever messages he wanted. So what do you have? Izabel, she took books. She had them written in Achav's name, in his language, and she sent it to all of the different elders. The Chorim are the aristocrats. She sent it to them, and that are all in his city, who are together with Navot. What did it say? Kirutzon, Navot b'rosh ha'am. It's time to fast. Whenever they're calling a fast, obviously calamity, disaster, something terrible has happened. And we're going to put Navot at the head of everybody means put him up, not on a pedestal, but put him on trial, essentially. V'oshivu shnaim anashim b'leiv lial negdo. V'iduhu lemor. Beirachta Elohim v'melech v'otziu v'siklu v'yamot. It doesn't say that he is guilty of anything in this missive. It says, go find two people who you will bring to falsely accuse Navot of sedition against God and king. It's in the letters to the nobility, right? It's a terrible thing we need to do, but I, Izebel, need your help because we need to do this for reasons of state. Like she's not really Izebel. I, Achav, and she's speaking the name of Achav. I'm the king, so I'm telling you to do. And I'm telling you right now, we need two false witnesses. Hire some people, bring them, we have to do this. So now, in other words, Achav, or really Izebel, is causing all of these people to collude in a conspiracy to bring down Navot. Verse 11. And she did exactly this. And notice, and you should just point out, it's in longhand in the Tanakh. Right? It could have been dispensed with in two words. Vayasuchein. They did what she said, what he wrote. Why is it in longhand? To emphasize they did this bad thing. All of them worked together to make this happen. It wouldn't have happened without their collaboration. Yeah. So they did. And so what did they do? Karutzom v'hoshivu navot b'rosh ha'am. Right? Call a fast. Place navot at the beginning, at the front of everybody. Anonymous people hired. Right? It's almost like they're anonymous because it doesn't matter who they are because they're terrible, but not as terrible as the nobility and the people who are the so-called elders. Vayishvu negdo, they sat against him. Vayiduhu anshe bli'alet navot neged ha'am lemor barech abeirach navot Elohim v'melach v'yotziyuhu michutz la'ir vayiskelu va'avanim vayamot. They testified, but beirach is a euphemism meaning cursed. He cursed as he did, right? This is against God and against king, and they took him out and they killed him. Done. They stoned him to death, right? With stones, which means that his body and his blood, everything's oozing out all over the rocks wherever this is. So what happens? Vayishlechu el Izebel lemor sukal navot vayamot. They send her a text. The deed is done. He's dead. Vayichish mo Izebel ki sukal navot vayamot vatomer Izebel achav kum reish et kerem navot Israeli asher me'ein latet lecha bechasef ki ein navot chai kimet. She comes back to Achav and she tells him it's time to go and to reish means in English is either possess or inherit. Mm-hmm. Not clear which. The vineyard of Navot, the Jezreelite, the Israeli, who had refused to give you, even for money. Can you imagine? Even for money, he refused to give you his whatever he refused to give you. By the way, it doesn't go into the details that were previously in the story because Navot is not alive; he's dead now. And what happens? Vayichi kishmo Achav kimet Navot vayakom Achav laredet el kerem Navot Israeli lerishto. So Achav got up in order to go down. Up and down. He got up to go down. And the idea that he got up here almost makes it sound like when she had found him sulking, pouting on his bed, she said, I'm going to take care of this. Now, did it really happen inside of 35 minutes? Did he spend the next week in bed? It's not clear. But the idea that the language is Vayakom, he got up, makes it sound like he was now listening to what she had said previously, back a few psukim earlier, remember? Where she told him, right? Verse 5, you're not eating, right? Verse 6, he tells her the story. So verse 7, she says to him, kum echol lechem. But it never says that he actually got up. So here he got up to do what he was going to do. Understand it? In other words, to give you the sense that this was now, Shigel gave him the news that Navot is dead. Does Achav have any clue that this has happened?
But he never asked her how he died.
Right. Right. We're going to take care of that thing, right? We're not going to say what it is, right? But it's going to be done, right? Now, he never even said that much. She just said, I'm taking care of it. And she said mysteriously, oh, he died. Now you should go get, and what's right after that? An ellipsis. There's a tab space. Why is it pause? He never asked the question. He doesn't want to know. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, he asserted himself. Yeah, it could be. Of course, he's being led around by somebody else. He's not actually making these decisions. Yeah.
Or it's like in the depression, he was sulking.
Right. And now he felt
And
good.
it's like the Sopranos here. You don't ask any questions. Don't ask me about the
Just keep going.
family business.
Yeah. Okay.
He
So
didn't-
yeah.
and he didn't care.
He didn't
Just
care. He didn't
like
care.
a child.
He wanted what he wanted. He got it. Right. She got it for him. His mother figure. She got her the wife. She got it for him. The queen.
This is a beautiful story,
Good.
right?
Beautiful story. Beautiful story. But you understand. This is actually a story that happened. Who was aware of this story? Well, Achav may or may not have been aware of the details. It's questionable. Izebel certainly is villainous, and all sorts of people who are in charge of the leadership all colluded. Does anybody else know about it? Yeah, we know about it because we're reading it. About 2,700 years later, we're reading the story.
You don't go up against people who kill you if you don't agree.
Okay, fine. But I'm just saying that there's a story. It happened. It's a scandal. And kach hava, yeah. What we need to understand a little bit better, and we'll spend most of the rest of this morning just trying to parse this, and then we will learn a little bit more of the story. When Navot says to Achav, I'm not going to give you what you want, the question is, was Navot at all in the wrong? Meaning, if you look at page 1, there's a Mishnah here and a Gemara, and it tells you about the power of the king. It tells you what the king of Israel is allowed to do. It tells you, and what this part is not in the English, but the Mishnah says that the king takes the army out to war if it's a volitional war, only with the sanction of the high court of the Jewish people in Jerusalem. It needs 71 judges to give license for Mechemet Reshut, Sanhedrin Gadol. He's also allowed to declare eminent domain, to build a highway, a road. Poretz lasot lo derech. You have a field, you can take your field. That's the halacha. No one can protest. Derech hamelach ein lo shir. Derech hamelach means the royal road. King's Highway. You've heard of King's Highway? Mm-hmm. Okay. That's why they call it that. Yeah. That's why the King's Way and King's Highway, that's why it's called, but it was always called the Derech HaMelech in the Torah. Derech HaMelech Nelech. It has there's no limit to it. It can be as long as the king wants, could be as wide as the king wants. Okay, so whatever. So also there's things about war and this dividing up the spoils. Now we have this part that's translated into English. I'll read the Hebrew. You can follow in the English. Amar Rav Yehuda Shmuel. Everything that's written in the section regarding the king that you find in Nach, the king is allowed to do. Rav Amar lo nemar parsha zu el ayim aleim shnemar so tasim alecha melech. The shetehei ematu alecha. No, this parsha is only spoken in order to threaten them. I gave you the English citation to look up. I wrote it in English later on, but much later. Hold right here. Go back to the Tanakh. Go to Shmuel, the book of Samuel, Shmuel Alef, chapter 8. You'll find it just for ease of use. Just turn to page 333. Hold your finger on 437 or go to 333, and you'll see. And this, of course, again, everything's connected, right? When the people ask for a king, they do so, let's say, in the worst possible way. They come to Shmuel Hanavi, and they basically say, look, we don't want you leading us. We want a king like everybody else. And on one level, the Torah does say they should put a king upon them when they come to the land of Israel. Another level, the way they asked, the time they asked, whatever it is, and they eventually end up with the first Jewish king, the king of Israel, when it's still one kingdom, and that's Shaul, Saul. But Shmuel tells them what having a king is going to mean. And when you read verse 11 to the end of the chapter, page 333, you see the vast powers that will be given to the king. He will take the giyus, there'll be a choka giyus, he'll bring into the army whoever he wants, and he'll bring the best of your sons and your daughters, and he'll marry whoever he wants, and he'll take whatever land he wants. Your private property will not truly be your private property because he will have the rights to it whenever he wants. Verse 14. Yeah? Vetzdotechem, vetkarmechem, vezeitechem atovim, yikach v'natan lavadav. You do whatever he wants. You take it. Further, verse 15. Vizar echem, your planted fields, vicharmechem, your vineyards, yasur. He can take a tithe and he can give it out to his civil servants. He doesn't have to listen to you. He'll own it all. Yeah? Machloket, one second. Machloket in the Gemara. Is that Shmuel Hanavi telling them this is what's going to be? Or is it just to threaten them to tell them you really don't want this and you should not have asked for this? Certainly not in this way. Questions? Comments?
The initial exchange between the king and the, whatever his name.
Navot.
Yeah. I mean, the king could have presented it in a different way. And would you talk to a king like that? Would you say?
Right. Right. I'm not selling it to you. That's basically what he said.
It's my pen, I understand,
Yeah.
but I'm pleading,
Right.
approach a different way.
Right.
Because the king himself would
But
say,
he also came,
Wait. Also, the king was very solicitous, wasn't he? I would like to buy it. I'll give you an exchange. I'll give you more money.
but he didn't come as the
Straight.
king.
What?
He didn't come as.
But he didn't come as the king. He didn't come as the king. It doesn't say, it says Achav.
Exchange.
Because it just says his name is Achav. And he, according to at least what we're reading now, at least according to one of the opinions here in the Gemara, Masachat Sanhedrin, Daf Chaf, he didn't have to ask permission. He could have just taken it from him. It's his. The other opinion says, no, he can't. The king has limits. By the way, the Magna Carta is very famous, early 13th century, amazing Western culture. The Magna Carta limits the rights of the king to not have absolute power so that people don't rebel, etc. We have a Magna Carta. It's chapter 17 in the book of Dvarim. Parak Yod Zayin. It's in Sefer Shoftim. There are limits on the king's power, right? Not too many horses, not too many wives, not too much gold and silver. He has to have a Sefer Torah. Why? So that he won't be too haughty over the people. The Magna Carta is there. Does that mean there weren't abuses? There were abuses. This is an example of abuse. But we have to understand why, because it could be, no, he could do whatever he wants. But you see, he came in a solicitous way. So maybe he came in a solicitous way, sort of almost with deference to a landowner, because he didn't really think it was his for the taking from somebody else.
He was not the king of Israel. He was the king of Shamron.
Well, this is the thing. Well, hold on. How far north? Right, that begs the question. How far north is the kingdom of Yisrael? Yisrael extend. Does it include Emek Yisrael? We saw in the last series that there were wars that were being fought about places just far that belong to the Malchut Yisrael north of the Kinneret. So it sounds like they really did own all of this land. They did control it. Actually, in the wake of this victory from the last go-around, there were 3 wars, the confrontations from the north with the Arameans. They did control that territory. So is he the king? Is he not the king? Or is there like a limit here? And it's not clear. It's not clear. And the Gemara itself,
outside of his kingdom.
he has I'm sorry, Kennebunkport, Maine. Have you heard of
Doesn't make
Camp
sense.
David? I don't know, whatever. Mar-a-Lago. I'm sure I should say that, but everything became so politicized. But what?
Rehoboth, that's where Biden goes.
Rehoboth, right? Rehoboth, right? But you have, it's true. But you have, so the king of Israel has a summer home. I could have said, it's just make more local. Caesarea.
But he can have that doesn't mean that he owns the land.
Okay. Beseda. But the question is, when does the king have the right to take the land from other people? And under what circumstance? If Achav, who's the king, knew the law better, wouldn't he have just said, I'm the king? I'm not asking, I'm basically telling you. And also there is a way that he spoke to him, that Navot spoke back to him, which was maybe a little bit irreverent. You're talking to the king of Israel.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe your
He
king.
invoked the name of Hashem.
And he invoked God's name. He did invoke God's name, right? Which, and there's what?
Did he know he was the king?
Not clear.
Pictures are not everything.
Turn to the next page, page 2. This I don't have an English translation for, so you'll bear with me. I'll read and translate. If you want to listen, it's good. And if you want to watch me, good. And if you want to read something else, also good. So the Bali Tosfot have this very question based on the Gemara, where there's actually an argument between 2 sages. One says that it was all just a threat that Shmuel described sweeping powers of the king to deter the people from wanting to have a king. But the other opinion says that really the king has the right to take the land and the field and the vineyard because he's the king. And that's one of the prices you pay for having a king. You shouldn't have asked for a king. So the Bali Tosfot asks, wait, Tema, there's a question here. Lama nenash achal navot, kivin shlorat salim korlo karmo. Why is Achav being punished regarding Navot? He was so nice to Navot. he offered him money or land. He didn't have to. So why is he being punished for taking his vineyard? After all, according to one of the opinions at least, he has the right to do it. Further, there's a chapter in Bava Kama. You see that David HaMelech actually asked, he had to ask a shaila if he was allowed to switch heaps of barley from the belonging to people to give to his own animals. He cared. So you see that kings do that. But v'yesh lomar, so you could say the parsha of Melech, even a parsha of the Melech, it says the third line of Tosfot, Yikach v'natan la'avadav v'lo atzmo. If you look carefully in what Shmuel said to the people before they brought Shaul on as the king, he said he has to give it to his servants, but it can't be for personal use. And on some level, the king of Israel remains a private citizen. And here he was saying, it's my house, my vacation house, basically, my palace that I have in Yisrael. So that's what I would like to do. That's why he couldn't just say, I'm taking it. I mean, he did take it, so that was criminal. But he didn't come to him and say, I'm taking it because it wasn't for national purposes. It was a personal thing. It was his private home. And if you look in Shmuel Alef, to the Bali Tos, what it says, he will take and will give to his servants, but not for himself. Another answer. אם היה רוצה, אבל כשהיה שואל אחאב שימכרו לו, חשב נבות שרשות בידו לומר לו ימכור. Since really, another possible answer, even though it's true, maybe you could say, yes, another answer. The king could take whatever he wanted. He didn't have to ask permission. But the fact that he did ask permission, and he did go to Navot, and he was so deferential to his own subject, and he said, I'm going to sell to you, Navot thought, so you're really giving me a choice? So, sire, I prefer not, because and he said why, God right? Okay. So another answer. Achav and his wife have put a great emphasis on building a culture of the Near East. We are Israelites. We're not Jews. We have the culture of the ancient Near East. She is the daughter of someone called Et Baal. That's her father's name. She's from Tyre, Tyre, from Lebanon. That's where he has his kingdom, the father. I don't know if he's still alive. Et Baal worships an idol called Baal. Yeah. So now she wants to have Baal everywhere. What is Baal? It's some kind of idolatry in gardens, beautiful, lush gardens where it's aromatic and whatever, and you bow to the idol, you sacrifice to the idol. So says Bali Tosfot.
So
that's why that's why he said, V'hayali legan yerek. That's why he said to him, I need it for a vegetable garden. He's got a beautiful vineyard. It's lush.
Yeah.
He wants to expand his territory to build a house. No, I want to put a little garden there. But everybody knew, wink, wink, that's what it means. Kimo, hamid kachim v'amatar el ginot. That's what Yeshaya is criticizing the people, that you're quote unquote sanctifying, quote unquote purifying all your gardens for the sake of idolatry. You want to say? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Given all this and the fact that Malchus Yisrael was a breakaway, did Hilchos Malchus apply to the kings of Yisrael, or did they just apply to the kings of Yehuda?
Complicated landscape. The short answer is yes, they all applied.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's part of the complication. You would have thought you break away from the place where the Beit HaMikdash is. You break away from the kingdom of Yehuda after King David was promised, David HaMelech was promised by God. It'll never leave from Shevet Yehuda. It'll always be, right? Ben David will always be the king. And then this 10 tribes breakaway, you would have thought, well, they're off the reservation, tarte mashma, in two senses of it, and therefore God has nothing to do with them anymore. But it's not what you see. The prophets speak to the kings of Israel, they interact with them, they do certain things in interaction, right? And so the halacha do apply, right? But I mean, to put it in modern parlance, what's going on now with the garden, it's like someone would come, God forbid, to a shul, let's say in Hyde Park, and would say, oh, Rabbi, you're leaving. We're going to buy it. We're making a church over here. No way. No way. Apparently there was more than one story like that. Yeah. Right. But there were more than one story that happened out in America. And you say, I can't abide that. So when the king of Israel came and he told him, I'd like to buy it, I want to make a little garden here. It's not because he needs vegetables. Yeah. It's because he wants to expand his his worship of Baal into that territory. And that's why he answered him specifically. What was the answer? God forbid, Chalil me Hashem. Okay, mititiyat nachalat avotai lach. Right? So, okay, yeah. By the by, just keep reading verse 4. When he came home, Achav, what did Achav come home when he went onto his sad? What does it say? He's playing over in his mind what Navot Israeli said to him.
I will not give you the inheritance.
The inheritance of my forefathers. Yeah. What did he leave out when in his recording in his head? God. It wasn't about God. It was about my parents and their memory and my legacy and this my yeah. So Achav also he skipped it. Next in Tosfot here, 4 lines up from the bottom of that first source. Vanakdan is one of the commentaries that Tosfot quotes. He writes, "De'ena mutarak b'sod harachokim min ha'ir, v'lo delo male kol kach avol kerem navot haya etzel heichal achav b'shomron." The difference is that the whatever license a king might have to fields that he's allowed to take, assuming that he doesn't have to take it just for his civil servants, but he could even use it for personal reasons. That's only when it's out in the boonies. This was right near his palace, was in the town. So that was the problem. The Odyek Shlomo de Davka b'Sedem Mikne. Aval Stea Achuza Shiarash Abotav. If Navot had purchased this field, then that's one thing. But this was actually his inheritance that he got as an heritage from his forefathers. Lo kamo she'eshiv Navot Chalil limititi nachalat Abotai lach. Right. And he actually got it as an achuza. Not only was it a nachla, but it was an achuza. It means he got it one generation to the next. Inami, another possible answer. Say Tosfot, the parshat hamelach lo nemer rak al hamelach shenimlach al kol Yisrael v'Yehuda. Back to your point, Ronnie. Maybe the license of the king to do this, to take these kinds of things, that kind of license, that's only if you are ruling over all the Jews, but not when you have 10 and not 12 tribes under your rulership. Achav was not the king because over everyone, and God had never really sanctioned the becoming the king. Yeah, so all those reasons. Next, the Rambam Paskins. There's the Rambam Hilchot Melachim Perak Daled. Velokeach sadot v'zeitim v'akramim la'avadav. The king is allowed to take the fields, the olive groves, the orchard, the olive orchards rather, and the vineyards for his servants. When they have to go to war, and therefore they spread out on these places. If they have nowhere else to get food from except from there, then the king can come and say, I'm claiming all of the wheat that's here. We have to make it into bread. We have to feed the troops, or the oil we need, or the wine, whatever it is. And the king would have to pay for it. Yeah, and so on and so forth. He could take it. That's the same verse we saw before. And the Rambam highlights that those words from the book of Shmuel. It has to be that he's giving it to his servants. That's to have a national purpose, not a personal purpose. And presumably here it has a personal purpose. Okay, I'm going to skip the Hagot Maimoniyot. Hagot Maimoniyot is a commentary of the Balei Tosfot on the Rambam. Essentially says the same thing that you just saw in the long Tosfot we just learned. So not gonna learn it again. Okay, now just running a little short on time, but. And this is just so much to say. Well, we'll pick up next week. What can you do? But just to see the first part from the Malbim asks some brilliant questions and gives, I think, some brilliant answers. He has questions. Ashelot. Lama kefel lenavot ha'Yisrael asher b'Yisrael. Why did it double the language? We saw that inside. Navot is a Jezreelite from Jezreel. Yeah, Yisraeli from Israel. V'lama diek l'karo b'shem Melach Shomron. It went out of its way to say that. Bichlal sipur yipale. Lama lo kach achabed akerav miyado biyad chazakam mishpatem lucha. Right? So we read, Kerem Ayala Navot Israeli, Hagam Shli from Yarav Lev, Melach Akacha Kerem Osadeh. He would like certain things, but Karmachem Yikach Natan Lavadav, Halozim Mishpatem Lucha, Ima Davar Tzirich Letzorachem Lucha. So the Malbim summarized what we saw before, Hasi for the sake of national purposes. Kigon Shlokech Mas, L'Shleim Bo, L'Anshet Tzivotav. He can take taxes. He can levy taxes. It's also in that original charge of Shmuel. But it has to be for the army to pay them. שזה מתועלת הכללי אשר כל בני המדינה צריכים לישא בעול המדינה, והאיש הבלתי נושא בעול רשות ביד המלך לקחת נחלתו ולקופו בחזקה. So yeah, the king can force him to pay up if he doesn't want to pay. וכן אם היה הכרם הזה בשומרון, אצל בית המלכות, שאחר המלכות שבשומרון היה עניין כללי לתועלת הכלל, כי שומרון הייתה עיר הבירה, it's the capital city. So yeah, if the Kerem had been in Shomron, he would have been within his rights. וצריך שבית המלכות יהיה מפואר בכל עוז. It had to look beautiful, the kingdom. וזה לכבוד האומה, it's a national center for the Malchut Yisrael, so it has to look nice. אם היה לקחו הכרם, אין רע, that wouldn't have been a problem. He could have taken it. לכן אמר, כי הכרם היה ביזרעאל ואחריו היה מלך שומרון. אצלו בשומרון הייתה עיר מלכותו ולא ישראל, וכל שבישראל אינו בית מלכות, רק היכל שלו, לא מצד שום מלך. It's not because he's the king, because he has a house. He has a house. Yeah? Okay. So, וידבר, וגם לא רצה את כרמו לצורך איזה דבר כללי, רק רצה לעשות ממנו גן ירק, he wanted a garden, and indeed, he quotes the same thing as Tosfot just said. באופן שרצה להשחית עצי הכרם, שהוא איסור, by the way, just to destroy a vineyard. Why? Just like that. לזרוע בו ירק, ולא נתן בו שום טעם של תועלת, רק מצד שקרוב לביתו. It's close to the house. והנה אחאב שהיה עובד עבודת אלילים, היה דרכו להעמיד הבעל על הגן שלו. That's what he did. And he quotes also from the book of Yeshaya, תחברו מהגנות אשר בחרתם, ומקדשים מטעם אל הגנות, the same thing. And he quotes, this is what Tosfot said. Yeah? And therefore he answered, and we'll read the rest of the paragraph, he told him, no, I'm not willing to do it. I'm not a sellout. I'm not selling it for money. I can't give it over for this purpose. I'm not gonna permit it. Yeah? Okay. So now, if you turn to, and he also said it has belonged to my parents, belonged to my family. So look in Sefer Vayikra, chapter 25. And we're familiar with these verses. The verses talk about the land and the ownership of the land, right? Familiar with this from the world of the world. It's on page 148. Yeah. Page 148, verse 24 and 25. והארץ לא תימכר לצמיתות, כי לי הארץ, כי גרים ותושבים אתם עמדי. You can't sell it in perpetuity because it belongs to me, and you're strangers and residents with me, says God. וכל ארץ אחוזתכם, גאולה תיתנו לארץ. Yeah, so you should basically, in the place that you've been given as an achuzah, it's yours. So you should make sure that it remains redeemed. What does that mean? Next pasuk gives us a window into that. There's a value to repurchasing the lands that are ancestral lands of your own family in the land of Israel. If for some reason you fall on hard times, you have to sell in order to gain capital. There's no home equity loan, so you sell the land and you'll buy it. You have someone in the family should buy it back, keep it in the mishpacha. Yeah, in the Sefer Bamidbar, chapter 36, you see the following. Right? Also, the Torah wants you to know toward the end of the book, page 208, the Torah specifically says not to shift land around between tribes, at least not in a permanent way. כי איש בנחלת מטה אבותיו ידבקו בני ישראל, וכל בת יורש נחלת ממטות בני ישראל, לאחד ממשפחת מטה אביה תהיה לאישה, ולמען ירשו בני ישראל איש נחלת אבותיו. They should have the inheritance of their forefathers, and when they don't have it, that's a problem. Yeah, this is a very touchy subject to ask someone, can I buy land that belonged to your family for many generations? The first time that comes up in the Torah, someone bought land that belonged to another family for a long time. It was very delicate. It's in Parshat Chayisara. And says the Ramban, that's why Avram said to the townspeople, Ufig uli be'efron ben sochar, basically be my surrogate to advocate for me. Since you're all on board that I should buy this land, please ask him. But I don't want, if I ask him outright, that's very uncomfortable. That's the Ramban I gave you here on page 3, on the middle of the page. He was wealthy, he was respected. Kasher amar beni uveincha mahi, beni uveinecha mahi, v'lo yelo lechavod limkor nachalat avotav, ginin avod ha'Yisraeli. Ken lo lach Avraham elav laharbot lo mechir hasadeh. Yeah, he didn't offer him, like, he didn't say to him, "I'll give you $2 million for your house." Right? Ubikesh man sha'ir shivgeu be'avuro derech kavod. It should be in a very respectable way. To ask him nicely, and of course, For Ephron, it's big honor. It's big honor. And that's why he eventually named the special price to 400. For you, a special. For my yeah. So it's all connected. One thing to the next. Yeah. So just there's basically 1 minute left. We'll see one more thing, right? And it has to do with the lopping off. By the time Achav got home from that conversation, he's smarting from his conversation. He left God out of the picture. And it says he is sar v'za'ef. It uses the expression, verse 4, he's sar v'za'ef, English, Koran, sullen and displeased. But it's more than he's enraged. Just turn back one page to page 436 and recall the end of chapter 20. And you will recall that the last verse in chapter 20 was that he went back to his house very sullen and displeased. Why was he sullen and displeased? Because he had just had a conversation with a prophet who said to him, I'm sorry, on what basis did you just leave go, right? The Hassan Nasrallah, Yamach Shemo, of our time. You let the enemy go when you had him cornered, when you actually could have taken him out, and he played to your sensibilities that you're aristocratic, and he's nobility and you're nobility, and we're blue blood, so we stick together. So even though he killed so many Jews, even though he conquered so much territory in the north of Israel, I let him go. And the king was thinking, how dare anyone speak to me that way? I did what I did because I'm the king and I do what I want, kind of thing. And who is the prophet and his God to tell me? End of Act 1, Scene 1. You know what I mean? Act 2, Scene 1. Now he's asking fellow citizen, so to speak, can I buy your land from you? No. God forbid I should sell my land to you. God forbid to you, because A, it's actually going to become idolatrous. And I know it's going to be, because that's what you just told me. Because you want lush? I got a vineyard over here. Yeah. 2, because it's actually my parents' ancestral homeland. And now and now you put the two stories next to each other. Achav has all sorts of mercy, and his kingdom has all sorts of mercy for an enemy king who's killed all sorts of people. But comes a fellow Jew who's done nothing wrong except say, no, thank you. And he took the word that he pulled out of the story was what? Chalila li me Hashem, that disappeared. Mititiat nachalat avotai lach. I'm not giving it to you, not to the likes of you. And the king thought to himself, I'm the king. You tell me you? To you? Oh, and if the right but it implies if the right buyer showed up, if the right person said something to me, I might sell, but not to you. That's very, very insulting. Notice that by the time the story gets,
That is his interpretation.
Oh, that's the point. That's the point. Is that the Navi's trying to amplify the same way he was really angry that he was told off by the Navi. But what was he going to do against the Navi? So he goes home and he's angry. And why is the Navi telling him off? The Navi is rebuking him because he's saying, you're going against Hashem. And you shouldn't have done that. And you'll be punished for that. Now another person, a commoner, if you will, said, Chalila lime Hashem, mititiyat nachalat avotai lach. And all he took from it, his interpretation is, it's a personal thing. And therefore, someone will have to take action. But I don't know what that action is, but
Well,
enter lady Achav from stage left. I will fix this for you.
Yep.
When we meet next time, coming attractions, we'll understand an even deeper layer of what's going on here, hopefully, and the next phase, which involves Eliyahu Hanavi reappearing from the mist into the scene, and we'll see where it goes. You have to come back next week for that exciting next chapter. Ad Kan for today.